I never imagined my parents would one day look at their own granddaughter and grandson as unwanted guests. Yet there I was, standing in the kitchen, staring at the phone while my mom's voice took shape on the other end of the line. "Honey, we need to talk about Thanksgiving." For an instant, the news lit up memories of the turkey roasting, cinnamon in the air, laughter spilling through the living room. Even after so many clashes, I still held on to those traditions. Emma and Lucas did too. They were counting the days to see their grandparents. "Sure, Mom. What's the plan?" I asked, already picturing the comforting smell that fills their house this time of year. The silence that followed was short, but long enough to freeze my stomach. "This year," she said, clearing her throat, "we're thinking of something more intimate, an adults-only dinner." My forehead creased before I could hide it. "So, no kids?" Another pause, heavier. "Not exactly," she answered, almost in a whisper. And in that instant, everything seemed to slip from my hands. The silence that followed was heavy, but I still needed to understand. "What do you mean?" I pressed. On the other end, my mom sighed, as if she were the one being inconvenienced. And in that tight breath, I sensed this talk would change much more than just one holiday. "Rose, sweetheart, we love the kids, but they're intense. This year it might be better to leave them with a sitter." I gripped the edge of the counter, feeling the cold marble against my palms. "Just mine? What about Daniel's kids? Daniel, my older brother, the favorite, the one who never fails, even when he does." Mom looked away, and in that instant, I understood. "Daniel and Sophie are bringing the boys," she confessed. "You know how they behave. They speak softly, sit nicely. It's easier to have them at the table." Blood rushed to my face. It felt like the floor was giving way. "They're only children," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Emma is 7, Lucas 4. They're lively, sure, but sweet. They love you." "We just want a quiet evening, that's all," she replied, impatience creeping in. "Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally?" I bit my tongue to keep from letting it all out. It wasn't just Thanksgiving. It was the school play they skipped, the dance recital they ignored, the Christmas gifts always a notch better for Daniel's kids. Now they weren't even pretending. I straightened up, took a deep breath, and met Mom's gaze. The decision, I felt, wasn't about that night. It was about how my kids and I would accept the place we were given, or whether we'd choose another place for ourselves. "No way," I blurted, the phone still pressed to my ear. "So my kids are left out, but Daniel's aren't?" Mom sighed, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "Rose, it's just one dinner. You and Liam are still invited, okay?" I swallowed the reply I wanted to give. They accepted me, but not the two people who carry my last name and my heart. "If my kids aren't welcome, I'm not coming either," I said, each syllable steady. The silence that followed was worse than a shout. Then she let out a "do whatever you want," and hung up, leaving my room buzzing with static. On the other side of the wall, laughter and pillows were turning into castles. They had no clue their grandparents saw them as a problem to be scratched off the list. I've spent my life bending to fit the mold my parents drew. Today, the mold cracked. If I give in, I'll teach Liam and Maya that love comes with conditions. And I won't do that. They chose to exclude. I chose to protect, and when they realize what they lost, they'll find the door they closed no longer swings the same way. The phone was still vibrating when I set it on the counter. The fridge's low hum filled the kitchen, but it couldn't drown out what I'd just heard. My parents choosing, once again, Daniel, and by extension his kids, as the only ones worthy of affection. For a few seconds I stood there, my hand tingling, my chest heavy. The idea that we were all loved the same died right there. From the hallway came a child's laugh, too light for the storm unfolding in my head. Emma and Lucas, surrounded by stacked pillows, were inventing kingdoms and monsters, unaware of the turmoil flipping me inside out. I took a deep breath. They needed to see something else in me, not the overlooked child, but the whole father. I straightened before walking into the room. "Movie night at home," I announced, keeping my tone firm. Lucas jumped up. "The one with the talking dog?" I lifted him into my arms, feeling my heartbeat settle. "That's the one, champ." While I adjusted the pillow fort so we could all fit, I silently promised that no one else's preferences would define their future. And when the lights went down for the movie to start, the only voice that mattered was mine, telling the story beside them. I sank into the couch, but my heart kept fighting. I'd spent years trying to fit my parents' mold, following every rule in the hope that someday they'd look at me the way they looked at Daniel. Nothing changed. And that night I realized I'm the one who needs to change. The next morning my phone lit up with his name. "Mom says you're making Thanksgiving hard. Why do you have to turn everything into drama?" I drew a deep breath. Of course she'd run to her favorite child. "I'm guessing she also mentioned she uninvited my kids to make room for yours?" The 3 little dots blinked, disappeared, came back. A minute of silence before his reply appeared. "She just wants a calm dinner, Rose. You know how your boys cross the line." Cross the line. Translation: They don't deserve a seat at the table. Something snapped inside me. "Have a perfect Thanksgiving, Daniel. We won't be there." I hung up before he could answer back. If there's no room for me and my kids in their world, I'll build my own. And when they notice, it'll be too late to pull up a chair. For years, I was the family's safe harbor. Need someone to pick up the groceries? They called me. Wi-Fi went down? I showed up to fix it. Party coming up? I handled the calls and messages. Meanwhile, Daniel, the golden boy, barely lifted a finger and got all the credit. It was time to stop. If I wasn't part of the favorite side of the family, they weren't getting my favors anymore. A week before Thanksgiving, the phone rang. It was my mom. I thought about letting it go, but I picked up. "Hello? Rose," her voice was careful. "Just checking on you. I know you were upset, but I hope you'll reconsider. We'd love to have you and Liam. Not the kids, just you two." I swallowed hard. "I already told you, Mom. If my kids aren't welcome, neither am I." She let out a heavy sigh, like I was the problem. "I don't understand why you're being so stubborn. It's just one night. You know how much Daniel's boys mean to us." Right then I realized, sharp as a knife, that the 2 little ones I love most would never be enough for her. My jaw locked. "You've made it clear where we stand, Mom. I won't bother you anymore." "Rose, don't be ridic—" I hung up before she finished, and this time I didn't cry. It started slow, almost unnoticed. The Saturday Dad asked me to help set up the new TV. I let the call go to voicemail. Days later, Mom left a message asking me to pick up her prescription. No reply. For years, I'd been the daughter who was always ready, always reliable. But I wasn't anymore. Within weeks, they realized it. By November, I'd racked up 12 missed calls and 6 unanswered texts. On Thanksgiving morning, my phone buzzed again. "Mom and Dad are crushed, you won't answer," Daniel wrote. "Are you really going to let it get to this?" I texted back without hesitation. "It got to this when they said my kids weren't welcome." Daniel didn't answer. I flipped the phone to silent and went back to the people who mattered. Emma and Lucas laughed while helping Liam stir the pancake batter. Flour flew around the kitchen, and every burst of laughter felt like we were cementing our own Thanksgiving tradition. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. I thought the silence had settled everything, but my parents hadn't played their last card yet. What they did next would cross every line and change whatever was left of our family forever. That Thanksgiving morning started unlike any other. No rushing into pressed clothes, no timers blaring in the kitchen, no mad dash to my parents' house. This time we moved at our own pace. The sweet smell of pancakes drifted through the living room, while the kids' laughter filled every corner. Emma and Lucas argued over who got to stir the batter. Liam, hamming it up like a TV chef, flipped pancakes in the air. Every time one almost slipped, all 3 of them exploded in giggles. For a rare moment, I felt nothing could touch us. Then the phone rang. On the screen, "Mom." I let it ring to voicemail. It rang again and again. Liam raised his eyebrows, worried. "Want me to turn it off?" he asked. I should have, but if it was something serious? I answered, trying to keep my voice even. "Hey, Mom." "Oh, so you finally picked up," she snapped. "I bet you're moping while everyone here enjoys a wonderful dinner." "Mom, if that's why you're calling, I can't talk right now." "I'm not calling to brag." Her voice tightened. "I need to ask you something." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "What is it?" A quick silence. "Did you cancel the credit card?" Suddenly, the peace of that morning felt as fragile as the pancake Liam had almost dropped. Time stopped. I turned away from Liam and whispered, "What are you talking about?" Mom answered in the same low tone. "Your dad's credit card, the one we use for groceries, gas, all that, was declined this morning." A cold shiver ran through me. That card wasn't theirs. It was mine. Years ago, when Dad was recovering from surgery and money was tight, I'd added them as authorized users. It was supposed to be temporary, just until the finances evened out. Life got busy, time passed, and nobody brought it up again. I clenched my fists. "You mean my card?" The pause was short, but it set the air on fire. Mom let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, don't be dramatic, Rose. It's just a card. You make good money, and we thought—" "Thought what?" My voice shook with anger and hurt. "That you could keep spending my money and I wouldn't notice? Don't turn this into a betrayal. We raised you. The least you could do now is help us." I filled my lungs, trying to stop the tremor. "Really? After telling me my kids weren't welcome on Thanksgiving, you still expect me to foot your bills? Do you hear yourself?" The air grew heavy. Across the room, Liam watched, afraid to step in. I was going to have to decide whether to cut the cord or try to stitch it up, but nothing would ever be the same. Mom's heavy sigh came through the phone like a warning. "Rose, this is why we avoid serious talks with you. You always overreact." I held my breath. "Overreact? Yes, I canceled the card. And let me be clear, you're not getting another cent from me." On the other end, she gasped like I'd slapped her. "Rose, don't be ridiculous. It's over." I took a deep breath. "And no Christmas presents, no birthday gifts, nothing. When they said my kids weren't welcome, they chose that path. Now I'm choosing mine." Silence. Then came a sharp, icy sentence. "You're going to regret this." The line went dead. I stood there, gripping the phone until my fingers hurt. I walked back to the kitchen slowly. Liam studied me carefully. "Everything okay?" I forced half a smile. "Just taking out the trash." He didn't push. The rest of Thanksgiving Day went by with movies, cookies, and games. For the first time in years, there was no pressure, no need to walk on eggshells. It was peace, a peace that felt temporary. Deep down I knew my parents wouldn't let their gold mine slip away that easily, and their next move would show exactly who they were. 3 days after a hollow Thanksgiving, my phone buzzed. On the screen, my brother's name, Daniel. I took a deep breath. I answered. "Me." "What is it?" "Daniel." "Rose, Mom's in tears. She says you cut off contact. What's going on?" I closed my eyes and pinched the bridge of my nose. "Me. Did she mention that for years they've been using my credit card without me knowing?" Silence on the other end. "Daniel. She said you were helping." "Me. Helping? They've racked up thousands of dollars in my name while treating my kids like they don't exist. But I'm the villain, right?" Daniel exhaled, trying to stay calm. "Daniel. Cutting them off isn't a bit much?" "Me. Like banning my kids from Thanksgiving dinner was a bit much?" "Daniel. They just wanted a quiet night. Mom said the kids are too hyper." I gripped the phone, my voice steady. "Me. So, my money's fine. My kids aren't. Got it." I stayed silent, waiting. Nothing. That's where the call ended. The phone hadn't even finished the first ring when I answered again. "You're taking all of this the wrong way," Daniel muttered, half guilty, half annoyed. "No, Danny. For the first time I'm seeing it clearly." Silence. I could feel him turning options over on the other end until he offered, "We can find some middle ground. You keep helping, but with a smaller amount, so no one gets hurt." I let out a short laugh. "Let me get this straight. They want me to keep sending money even after saying their kids are worth more than mine?" "That's not what they—" He choked. "That's exactly what they said." Another pause. When he spoke again, his voice sounded sharp. If you want to be selfish, that's on you. Just don't expect Mom and Dad's forgiveness anytime soon. I tilted my head, smiling like slipping out of an old rope. I'll survive. I ended the call before he could react. The following weeks brought calculated silence. No good morning, no emojis, nothing. I knew the game. Wait for me to crawl back for approval. The thing is, this time there was nothing in me willing to beg. So when I thought the siege had lifted, the final play came. 1 week before Christmas, Liam showed up at the door holding an envelope with the family surname in fancy letters. He frowned, handed me the letter, and asked, almost in a whisper, "Ready for their next move?" "It's from your parents." My muscles tightened. Of course, it had to be blackmail. He let out a crooked smile. "Shall we take a look?" I held the envelope. My stomach knotted as I broke the seal. Inside, a contract. I held my breath. My parents were demanding reimbursement for the years of support, emotional and financial. I let out a short laugh. "You can't be serious." Liam took the paper, scanned the lines with his eyes. "They want you to pay for raising you and for the sacrifices they made." He looked up, jaw set. "They're charging you for your own childhood?" All signs pointed to yes. There was a meticulous list. Meals, clothes, school supplies, doctor visits. At the bottom, the final amount, $78,542. I blinked, breathless. Do they really think I'm handing over almost $80,000? Liam let out a short laugh. That's desperation, plain and simple. The letter shook in my fingers. It wasn't about money. It was the last chain they were trying to drag me back with. I looked at Liam. Time to knock on their door. The next day, the car barely fit on the street where I grew up. I parked, took a deep breath, and marched to the door. I rang the bell with the tip of the envelope. The door flew open. My mom appeared, face hard. "Here for explanations?" I held up the letter, not breaking eye contact. "You really thought this was going to work?" She crossed her arms. "It's only fair." I let out an incredulous breath. "Fair? Charging your own daughter, while expecting me to support you for the rest of your lives?" My dad appeared behind her, a smile I've known since childhood. "We sacrificed everything for you, Rose. And now you trade us for scraps?" The air grew heavy. I stared at them steady, feeling the weight of every year of guilt they taught me to carry. "Today, the bill comes due," I said, voice low, unwavering. And for the first time, it was their door that creaked with uncertainty. I already knew that Christmas visit would be short. It only took stepping inside to find my parents at the table, a pale envelope between them. "We hope you'll read this," my dad said, sliding the paper toward me. I opened the document. It was a list of expenses from my birth through college, calculated to the penny. At the end, a steep total and a deadline for payment. I looked up. "So that's what a daughter's worth?" My mom kept her voice steady. "Raising you was expensive. It's only fair you pay us back." "Fair?" I repeated, feeling my blood surge. "You told me over and over my kids weren't good enough for this family, that I had to make up for my choices. You lied, you took money behind my back, and now you want me to foot the bill for my own life." She shut her mouth, saying nothing. "If you don't agree," I said, "we can let the lawyers handle it." I held her gaze. "Go ahead. Tell a judge why you're suing your own daughter for 20 years of diapers and school books. I'd love to see how that goes." The silence that followed felt heavier than any word. My dad cleared his throat, unsure. "We just thought you'd rather settle everything." I let out a short laugh. "I'm settling it right now." I tore the paper in half, then again, and let the pieces fall onto the table like odd confetti. "The ATM is closed. Find another card." My mom gasped. "Ungrateful." I turned without hurry, grabbed my coat from the chair, and headed for the door. "Merry Christmas!" I tossed over my shoulder, already feeling the cold street air on my face. The latch clicked shut behind me. Outside, lights blinked on the neighboring houses, reminding me that, despite everything, it was still a night of celebration. And for the first time in a long while, I felt truly free. The steering wheel still trembled under my hands when the weight lifted, sheer, unfamiliar lightness. Right there in the dim glow of the road, I realized it wasn't the money that hurt them, but losing control. For the first time, all the power was mine, and I wasn't giving it back. I figured tearing up that absurd demand would make my parents back off. I pictured the two of them sitting among the rubble of their own arrogance, finally aware they'd gone too far. Naive. People like them don't change, they just turn up the volume. The counterattack came quietly 2 days before Christmas. Mom, Rose, this is ridiculous. We're family. You don't turn your back on family over a silly argument. I ignored it. The next day, another attempt. Mom, we forgive you. Come to Christmas dinner and let's forget this ever happened. I almost laughed. They forgive me? Hours later, my phone lit up with my brother's name. Daniel. They're really hurt, Rose. Just apologize so we can move on. I rolled my eyes. In his universe, I was the one in the wrong. I typed, funny. They weren't hurt when they were stealing from me or when they said my kids weren't welcome. I think they'll survive. Sent. Blocked the number. And kept driving, each mile lighter than the last. It was Christmas Eve. Liam set the star on top of the tree while Emma and Lucas twirled around the living room in pajamas, bursting with energy. The night felt perfect. Until the doorbell rang. Liam shot me a look that said it all. I went to the door and peeked through the peephole. On the other side stood my parents, the last people I expected, with a huge, carefully wrapped package. I thought about backing away, but I unlocked the door. "What do you want?" I asked, still in the doorway. My mom forced a smile. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." My dad held the gift out toward the kids. I crossed my arms. "No thanks." "Rose, don't make this hard," she insisted. "Let's not ruin the evening." "You ruined it when you said my kids weren't welcome at your table," I shot back. She fell silent. My dad let out a short sigh. "Let's put this behind us and be a family again." "Family?" I stared at them. "You only show up when you need me." The silence said it all. I pointed at the package. "Take it and leave." "Think of the kids," my mom pleaded. I gave a half smile. "I am thinking of them. That's why you're not part of their lives anymore." My dad clenched his jaw. "You sure this is how you want to end it?" "It's already over," I said, and closed the door. Inside, Emma and Lucas were still dancing by the tree. Deep down, I knew it was the first Christmas that truly belonged to us. That night, I finally understood what turns Christmas into a memory. Emma and Lucas ripped through the wrapping as if every ribbon hid a treasure, and their laughter raced through the rooms. Between sips of hot chocolate, we battled over board games, switched from one movie to the next, and when sleep won, they both dozed off on the couch. For the first time, I realized Christmas didn't have to prove anything to anyone. It just had to be ours. It was love we chose, with no strings and no debts. I thought the story ended there. After cutting off their funding, the humiliations, and the scene at my door, I figured my parents would finally get that I'd closed that chapter. But I underestimated how much they still thought they were in control. On New Year's Eve, I bet on a fresh start. While I set out snacks, I let the house fill with laughter and music. Emma and Lucas, excited, paraded down the hallway in party hats, counting every hour till midnight. Liam moved among the guests with flutes of bubbly and an easy smile. The night was ours, or so I thought, until the unexpected knocked on the door. The knock shattered the apartment's chatter. My body stiffened. Liam, on the couch, met my gaze. He already knew. I took a deep breath, walked to the handle, and opened up. There they were, all four of them side by side. My mom, my dad, Daniel and his wife, Sophie. A family siege in broad daylight. I crossed my arms. "What do you want?" My mom's smile was too sweet, the same one she wears when she wants something. "We just need to talk." "No thanks," I said, keeping my voice level. My dad let out a heavy sigh. "Rose, enough. You've made your point. Let's end this before it gets worse." "Worse?" How? I asked, narrowing my eyes. He exchanged a quick look with Daniel. My mom finished. We don't want the kids to suffer because of all this. A shiver ran up the back of my neck. What exactly are you talking about? Daniel stepped forward, arms crossed like he'd been wronged. Mom and Dad talked to a lawyer. Cold crept down my spine. A lawyer? I echoed. Mom nodded slowly, her eyes shining with fake tenderness. We're worried, Rose. You pushed your kids away from the family over a misunderstanding. That's not fair to them. My heart started racing. And what do you plan to do? Dad cleared his throat. We looked into grandparents' rights. For a second, all I could hear was the blood pounding in my ears. Then I burst into a loud, bitter, razor-sharp laugh. They really thought a lawsuit could force their way back into my life? And my kids? Daniel frowned. What's so funny? I wiped away the tears that came with the laugh. You're actually serious? You think some judge is going to look at all this and take your side? Mom pressed her lips together. We didn't do anything wrong. Nothing? I stepped forward. You stole from me? Treated my kids like they were invisible, and now that I've cut ties, you want to shove me back into that hell? Dad's face darkened. Don't do this, Rose. I held his gaze and smiled. Oh, I'm doing it. I raised my phone. Think hard before you take another step, I said firmly. I've got every text, every voicemail demanding money right here. If you try anything, I'll bring you down. Sophie choked. Rose, let's take it easy. No. I kept my eyes on my parents. You have no case. I know it and so do you. Keep pushing and I'll show everyone who you really are. Silence hung for a moment. Mom's face quivered with anger. You're being irrational. No, Mom, I said, already heading back inside. I'm finally being rational. I held the door for a second. Happy New Year. And I shut the door in their faces. The silence started right after the threat. No texts, no calls, no sign of them. And for the first time, I felt the weight of their expectations lift. The need to please vanished, along with the guilt and manipulation cycle that kept me trapped. Months went by. One spring afternoon, I sat on the porch and watched Emma and Lucas chase shining bubbles in the yard. Liam brought lemonade, settled next to me, and broke the quiet. It's pretty quiet, huh? I nodded. And it's a good kind of quiet. He raised an eyebrow, half smiling. Think they'll come back? I brought the glass to my lips and before answering, let the kids' laughter fill the air. They can try, but we've already won. I've got my kids, my real family. I'll never let anyone make them doubt they're loved again.